As you probably have all heard, former President Donald Trump, there was an attempted assassination against him last Saturday, July 13th. He narrowly avoided immediate death from a bullet aimed at his head. He slightly avoided several bullets, and one of them ended up clipping his ear. And in the firing, other people were hit, including a father protecting his family who died, protecting them. After firing a few rounds, the shooter was killed by the Secret Service snipers who were already eyeing down the shooter and kind of just let him shoot the president and then decided to start shooting at him. Yeah, for some reason they just didn't do anything until the man started shooting Trump, even though though a new report showed that they considered him a threat 10 minutes before Trump took stage. This is a new clip that surfaced earlier from a report with, I believe, special agency groups, Secret Service, and congressmen or whatever. This is a Fox News clip. Okay, I guess we're just not gonna have face cam. That's cool. I don't care. All right, we're just gonna start it right here where we were. We didn't miss anything important.
Lot of notes that I'm going to look at here. Just about a couple minutes ago, these senators came out of this briefing with Secret Service. They've been asking for it for days now. Finally got it with the director and Secret Service staff. And the top headline that has come out of it, according to Senator John Barrasso, just spoke to him as soon as he hung up on this briefing. He said that apparently the Secret Service had identified as a character of suspicion this man, the shooter, because they saw a range.
Why is it so okay? We're figuring it out live. I really should have gone through it again, but I didn't want to wait anymore. I've already waited like 3 days to land the stream. Let me make sure the audio is good now. I should have fixed it.
Finder on him, as well as a backpack, and this all happened more than an hour before the shooting actually occurred. So they saw the guy and they identified this guy as suspicious. Now, more details coming from a source familiar here who was also in the meeting tells me that about 10 minutes before former President Trump went onto the stage, they had gone from looking at this guy as suspicious to now looking at him as a threat. That is coming from this briefing that the senators were in. They were told that Secret Service had called it in to a center that this guy they now identified as a threat about 10 minutes before President Trump walked on stage, and they still allowed him to walk onto that stage. I'm told the Secret Service agent in charge there was on the phone with local and state police about the threat while the shooting was taking place. That's huge. And that is raising a lot of concerns and now major calls for the director of the Secret Service to step down immediately.
Okay, there we go. Let me switch back to my scene one. You guys are gonna have to see everything that I do. That's fine with me. But yeah, that's very interesting. Apparently they just like knew they they deemed him suspicious because they saw him like with a backpack and binoculars, basically, and they're like, okay, this guy's probably gonna shoot people. Let's just let Trump on the stage. You know, that's something that's totally normal. Very normal behavior. Um, And he also brought up a suspicion of security personnel 3 hours prior to the shooting too, which is very interesting. Because they're just like, okay, this guy might shoot someone. That's fine. Such a very normal security. From what I've heard, people that have talked about going to Trump rallies, they always secure rooftops and stuff. They didn't in this scenario, I guess. I remember there was like a press briefing where the secretary said we didn't put anyone up there because of the danger to Secret Service, but your job as Secret Service is to die for the president. That's your job. Like when the president gets shot, you jump on him and you get shot instead of him. That's your job. So that's just we'll call it silly. We'll say it's a bit goofy. And so there's been legitimate concerns very recently over whether the shooting happened just by such a grave failure and ineptitude of such a big form of negligence that just caused this, or if there was some form of inside involvement. To be honest, I kind of just like, and maybe this is kind of controversial to say, but I really don't care, kind of. I mean, obviously I care. I think it's awful if they're trying to assassinate the president or whatever, and the security apparatus and security of the government is behind it. But the end result should be the same. I mean, these people are all fired, and then Trump or whatever, or they resign or whatever the process is for getting rid of Secret Service. And more competent people that are loyal are put in that position. The solution is still the same, and so I don't really know how much it benefits to assess how much it was a cover up or not, or a there was involvement from the government or not, or Secret Service or not, because it really doesn't benefit anything. The shooting still happened, someone still died. It doesn't really change anything. So I kind of don't care, to be honest. But obviously, it is important. It is like a terrible thing if it is true, and something we should rightfully be mad about. If it definitely is true, and even if it isn't true, we should still be mad at the Secret Service because it's just a crazy failure of all forms of security just to allow someone with to bring a ladder and a rifle and a backpack and binoculars up onto a rooftop that should have been closed off and then shoot at a president who narrowly escaped having his head blown off and then had it mark his ear and then end up also having a father of a family die at the hands of this shooter which the shooting really shouldn't have happened. um, it's crazy. It's just crazy to think about. Um, so I don't really want to talk too much about the shooting just because there's so much to talk about, and I didn't have time to prep for all that. But also, it's been talked about so much. There's until we get more information, there's nothing new for me to add. Like we know the Secret Service failed. We know this guy's crazy. We know Trump almost died. There's not much more for me to add, but I do want to rebut a few things that I've seen been circulating recently that are just provably false. The first thing is that um, there's been debate over whether or not Thomas Massey, or that's not his name, that's the Thomas Cook, sorry, Thomas Matthew Crooks, was a Republican or not, because there's a Thomas Crooks in the state of Pennsylvania who is registered Republican, but there's also Thomas Crooks who donated to Joe Biden, and so people have been debating about whether this is someone that a Democrat that registered Republican to vote for Nikki Haley, or whether this is truly whether or not this is truly a Democrat Biden vote or whatever. So I do want to let me switch scenes real quick again. Hopefully, let me make sure my mic is still on. It is cool. Um, so this was where it started. The shooter Thomas Crooks was registered Republican. Thomas Matthew Crooks, Thomas M. Crooks of Bethel Park, which is where the shooter's family was located. 2003. This all matches the age that he would be. In 2022, he registered Republican, and there was something that came about that people have been talking about, where a Thomas Crooks from Pittsburgh donated $15 in 2021 to a progressive PAC that supports Joe Biden. But he doesn't live in Pittsburgh. The guy that lives in Pittsburgh is a 69-year-old named Thomas Crooks from Pittsburgh. Yeah, Thomas Crooks. Whereas Thomas Matthew Crooks lived in Bethel Park. So, no, he didn't vote for Joe Biden. That's just not true. Um, he did not donate to Joe Biden. That's just not true. He definitely was a Republican. But I think that kind of is even worse because we'd expect someone that's a Democrat to try and maybe not all Democrats. Obviously, we shouldn't expect every Democrat to shoot Trump, but we should expect the shooter to come from a Democrat side. It's much more worrying that it's a Republican doing it, actually, because this means that in some way there's such a big hatred for Trump within the Republican Party, or the idea that he could represent, to where someone is motivated towards within the own party to shoot the person that the party voted for. And so this leaves us to, who could that be? What type of groups could this be? Well, assessing that this guy, he was really into guns or whatever, probably a libertarian and or neocon type. The type of guy that either voted for a libertarian candidate or voted for Nikki Haley, which is really interesting because this is one of the first things I thought about when Trump almost died. What happens if he dies? Right? He already won the primary. What happens if he dies? Well, it was days before the RNC. The RNC would just choose a new candidate. Who would that be? Probably DeSantis, probably Nikki Haley, someone like that. Not Donald Trump, which is the real concern here, because if Trump the whole point of Trump in 2016, what Trump did was he came in and he took down Jeb Bush, which was the supposed candidate. Everyone said Jeb Bush was going to win. All the donors were behind Jeb Bush, this businessman who he got some funding, he got some PAC support, but self-funded a lot of his campaign, comes in, takes out Jeb Bush, takes out the next guy, Ted Cruz, and John Kasich they throw at him, and he doesn't do the same thing. He doesn't come out and say, well, we just need lower taxes, lower abortion, or make abortion less accessible, lower taxes, and more, war with China and a war with the Middle East. He doesn't come out and do that whole spiel that we've heard since Bush and Bush Sr. We heard some with Reagan, and we've heard from this party ever since the departure of Nixon, and even some with Nixon and prior. It wasn't this spiel of this, neocon infusement or this that we've seen with the party. It was instead, I'm not going to be this pretentious guy who just I'm not going to be this pretentious guy that cares about being nice to everyone and tries to work within the system. Screw the system. The government hates you. Everything sucks. America is not this great dream that it once was imagined to be. Everything is terrible. And that was the message of Trump. And this is such a different message from maybe something that so many people in the Republican Party would want, which is why since his election in 2016, there's been such a big, support for other candidates from both donors and the voter bases against Trump, because he represents something that a lot of people grew up, knowing the Republican Party for. He represents the opposite of that, or an enemy to that. And he is an enemy to the Republican Party, which is why he was awesome, which is why he was so cool. Now, we've seen him kind of get absolved by the party as he's been president. I'm going to add some extra light here. I think it makes it look better. But we've seen him be absolved by the party some, and we saw that recently with the new VP candidate he promoted, or he said would be his VP candidate, JD Vance, who interestingly just came out of nowhere in 2022, the biggest donator for primaries in 2022 for any congressional candidate was Peter Thiel, who backed two candidates, Blake Masters from Arizona, Blake Masters, and JD Vance. And JD Vance, really interestingly, he runs. I accidentally closed something. Let me make sure my OBS is still open. Okay, it is. JD Vance runs a campaign that just adopts all of the Trump messaging from 2016. It's, well, we need to secure the border. We need to bring manufacturing into America. We need to fight tech censorship or whatever. This is his platform. It's very Trump 2016-esque with some modern conservative positioning, like he was for a porn ban, which was a more modern positioning. But I mean, this guy comes out of nowhere. He was a Yale guy who worked with I think it's the AEI, which is a big constituency group, I think. And Peter Thiel funds him, and then he becomes a really big name. And next thing, he becomes vice president. And there was apparently a report that I haven't looked into this. I don't know how authentic it is, but a report that like Tucker Carlson was telling Trump that he has to pick JD Vance, or else he might get assassinated or whatever. And then Elon Musk apparently donated to him, and all these people, I think David Sachs, maybe a couple people donated to Trump saying he had to pick JD Vance for his vice president. And it's this weird collusion to make JD Vance your vice president. But why does it matter, right? Like, it's just the vice president. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because Trump is, 74, I think? I don't remember how old he is, but he's old. He might not be alive for the next primary to say, we think of a king, which is sort of like the figure that Trump has built up for himself. He chooses the next person, or he promotes the next person that's going to take the party once he leaves. Think of Reagan and Bush, right? Reagan makes Bush his VP, and then Bush carries on the party once he departs. Think of JFK and Lyndon B. Johnson, right? And so the future of the party is a big question right now, because the MAGA base is so intertwined with Trump that without Trump, it kind of leaves a question for what is the MAGA base? Who do we support? Is it different from Nikki Haley or DeSantis, or is it something new? And JD Vance represents this very interesting figure where he is America first on immigration, on foreign wars, except for these things in which the neocon, and the Zionist groups all have favor towards, which is things that favor Israel. So he's anti-foreign spending except for Israel. He's like he's against, foreign involvement and foreign wars except for Israel. Crazy how that happens. He comes out to the RNC and he says that we're basically going to bomb Iran. Like, what? This is like nothing like the Trump 2016 platform that he originally built the party around. And so JD Vance represents this new figure that's so departed from the original messaging and represents this new image, which is a infusement between the old ideas of the past, the old neocon ideas, with this America First messaging to change it from America first in the interest of Americans first towards we're going to put the country of America before or above, as in making it better than all nations. Not meaning we're going to focus on ourselves and prioritize on ourselves and our own manufacturing and build up our economy, but meaning we're going to crush our opposition by nuking them and engaging in wars, which is nothing what the branding ever was. So we had to hope that Trump holds out to his promises. He promised no more wars. That's a big 2024 promise. We have to hope he holds out to that promise. But the promotion of Vance has been a bit worrying. There were other terrible options. Doug Burgum is an issue. Uh, Ben Carson's just boring. Tim Scott would make me like. Honestly, I don't know if I could vote for a Tim Scott candidate. He is one of the most annoying people alive. Like, I might. I don't want to say any suicidal jokes because I'm not suicidal, so I'm just not going to say any. But I would be very upset, let's say, if there was a Tim Scott ticket. Okay, so there were bad options. The only one I actually liked was Vivek. He's the only option I actually liked. Because he's the only guy, even though he's Hindu or whatever, he's the only guy I see representing a messaging of America First that's in line with, I guess, the view that I find admirable with isolationism and focusing on ourselves rather than other people. Um, so that's been interesting, and it's especially worrying because with the JD Vance stuff, because he used to be a never Trumper. Now, I believe he did vote for Trump in 2020, so he could have changed. But in 2016, he did vote for Clinton, I believe, and he made public appearances trashing Trump. So the worry is that we have another Mike Pence, where if a big situation arises, he won't be loyal. But we can't know, we can't foresee the future, but it hasn't been the greatest round of news. Um, People were expecting once Trump got shot at that, I guess this big figure, dictator figure, will just arise from the ashes, rise up and punish the enemies and jail all the libtards. It's not going to happen. Like, as soon as he gets shot, all the RNC people come on to the news broadcast. They get called in to do public appearances, and they say the problem is we need to unite the country. And Joe Biden and Democrats are disunited country, and that's why Trump got shot. That was so clearly going to be the messaging from the moment that he was shot. Um, and I don't know why people didn't see that being the direction that Trump would also inevitably take, but it is the direction he's inevitably took. More news about the RNC quickly before I get off this topic because I don't want to talk about it too long. The RNC apparently removed all anti-gay language in like their proposed issues or whatever, and they brought like Amber Rose on, which is like a porn star or whatever, and they brought like Hindu people to like pray to their gods or fake gods. Uh, it was just all around the mess. It's been a mess. I haven't watched like more than maybe 10 minutes of the RNC because it's just so terrible. I tuned into RNC night one and I tuned into it for the first time and some lady's just singing up there with like a headcloth on and she's just singing the worst singing imaginable. It's not even like she was good at singing. She was terrible. Um, and so it's just been a total mess. I mean, it makes it hard for me to be enthusiastic for the upcoming election, but we still should be. I mean, can you imagine the L that it would be for the future of the nation? Even if the Trump administration doesn't bring all these great things, if the guy that leads our party that started our movement gets shot in the ear and then loses, like, can you imagine how like terrible that'd be? All the like the big morale killer that would be. We kind of do have to ride the morale a bit. So we're excited to vote in 2024 for Trump still, even with all the things that are seemingly going to be terrible. at the very least, and this is what I was saying from the beginning, I remember people were talking to me in 2024 early primaries. They were like, well, what if like, or even before the primaries with the whole Yay 2024 stuff. And I was a proponent of the existence of Yay 2024 as an idea, although I never thought he'd win. I just thought he might push the narrative to a admirable or a direction we might want, which he did. I mean, he's made the Israel conflict a big issue within the Republican Party. Not just him, but he definitely contributed with his Alex Jones appearance and a couple other things he might have said, especially on Piers Morgan and other interviews he might have done with TMZ or whoever it might have been. But people kept asking me like, well, if Trump is like just the same as everyone else on with all these issues, what's the benefit? The benefit is at least in some way he is at least energizing a young base and creating this cultural zeitgeist for recognizing, even if he's not this figure that hates the system and works against the system, people still view him that way. And so he still, in some way, is energizing that sort of energy with people. Even if his words or his actions don't reflect it, at least with some people, that's going to be a thing that transpires. So at the very least, there are some upsides. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to. I just finished out my voter registration today. Hopefully, I'm able to vote in 2024, and I guess I'll have to vote for Trump and the Trump Vance ticket. But I want to move on to more interesting news. Not that that's not interesting. The future president almost being assassinated is kind of interesting, but everyone's talked about it already. So I want to talk about something that no one else has because I don't like doing the same thing as everyone else. And so our next story is going to be a completely different note. It's actually about Katy Perry, which is a pretty interesting topic. Real quick, I actually don't let gang know, but I kind of like Katy Perry. Don't let gang know. I had to cover up her body, very disgusting. Um, but Katy Perry has come out with a new track. She's making a new album with and she's come up with a new track. It's a single. It was her first single releasing from the album called "Woman's World." And it's produced by Joseph, Dr. Luke, Rocketed again, and Oliver. And what's interesting about this is that it's been a huge controversy. I mean, a big controversy. So Dr. Luke, if you don't know, he in 2014 was accused of sexual abuse by Kesha. Kesha, if you don't know, she made the song TikTok, Blow. She made Timber with Pitbull. She was really known for her first three albums, Animal, Cannibal, the EP, and I forget the name of the third one, but the third one had Die Young, which did really well. So she was really big in the early 2010s with that dance pop era. But in 2014, she just disappeared from the music scene because she accused Dr. Luke of sexual abuse. And she basically ruined her whole career because she was signed to his record label until December of last year. So she couldn't produce any records. And her career was heavily made by Dr. Luke in the first place, as well as common collaborator Max Martin, who is the most successful pop producer ever, and Dr. Luke's prodigy, Benny Blanco, which is also one of the most successful producers ever. So she threw away her career and her ability to produce records to accuse Dr. Luke, but her lawsuits never went anywhere, and he was never found guilty of her allegations. So usually, that'd mean the court of public eye, he's deemed innocent. I haven't looked into the papers or the lawsuits. So I don't really know what happened, but usually that is how that works or how it's supposed to work. But that's not how it works, at least in the feminist movements with their believe all women mantra. This has been problematic because Katy Perry is collaborating with Dr. Luke on the song and as well for the whole album. And again, this has been really problematic, especially because the name of the song is called Woman's World, which is obviously a calling to some feminist idea that women, I guess, rule the world. Um, and so, yeah, it's been a huge controversy, absolutely massive. But it became a bigger controversy when the music video drops. And I'm not going to show anything from the music video because it's so disgusting. Um, but the music video is literally like the whole video is just like nudity, basically. Um, Actually, real quick before I get into that, I do want to talk about Dr. Luke more. The reason Katy Perry is working with him, even if she thinks he does that, I mean, Dr. Luke as well as Max Martin basically made her career, and she started to fall off when she turned away from them. So it makes sense she'd work with them. But again, it's been a controversy because believe all women or whatever, and it's become a big controversy with how sexual the video is because there are shots of Katy Perry as a sexified version of the "We Can Do It" lady. You know, the lady that's like, "We can do it." That's been a big issue, as well as like there's shots in the music video of like her boobies jiggling, and her sticking a gas tank into her butt. And for the whole music video, she's basically like almost naked, and so it's been a big issue because the feminist idea is that women can be men in the same way. Women and men are the same things, and women can replace men in society evenly. Or there would be no issue if women replaced men in society. Nothing would happen. But, and it obviously opposes this idea that women are here for sexual satisfaction and that they have some form of value that is transcendent, such as being able to be a boss or being able to run a company or be a president. But the music video kind of says otherwise because of all the nudity. It makes it sound like women are actually there for the male gaze. And so it's been a big controversy. But really interestingly, Katy Perry released a video on Instagram that she recorded during a set day. I don't know how many set days there were, but during a set day, she recorded a video and she posted it on Instagram with a caption, "You can do anything, even satire." And in the video, she says this. No one clipped this, by the way. No one clipped this. She says, "And with this set, it's like, oh, we're not about the male gaze, but we really are about the male gaze. And we're really overplaying it and on the nose because we're about to get smashed." Which is like a reset for me to my idea of feminine divine. I wanted to include the clip of her saying that, but there just wasn't enough clothing to show it on my stream. But feminists have been really mad about this because, again, it's not a video that shows women as doctors, but as sexual objects. But Katy Perry says it's satire. So, this shouldn't matter. But here's like the real takeaway, which is that even if it is satire, its market, the thing that it's satirizing, perpetuates the avenue for women in controlling men by sexual desire. Because it's something that can be satirized, is affirming its reality, basically. So, it attempts to satirize the male view of women, but this inherently perpetuates a reality, which is that men view women as sexual objects in some way. Um, and the reality is that throughout history, we've seen basically the only way that women have been able to be empowered as figures has been through sexual appeal. Men don't want to listen to women or submit to them. They don't want to be bossed around by women. At least the masculine ones don't. Unless there's sexual desire involved. This is the story of most female figures. This is the story of Jezebel. This is the story of Kamala Harris, who allegedly slept around for power. This is the story of Aphrodite, the goddess of sexual pleasure. Interestingly, in the song, her biggest song, Dark Horse, she says, "Make me your Aphrodite." So this has always been, I guess, a belief of hers in some way. This is the story of Cleopatra, who was loved for her sexual desire. This is the story of a lot of celebrities who have become prominent, especially recently, Sydney Sweeney. And so her satire unintentionally shows the reality of female power, which is that it doesn't happen through intellect or skill, but by sexual appeal. And the fact that it's what so many men desire to the point that it offers room for satirization is the proof within. And this is obviously an issue because women shouldn't be leading men. That's an issue. And when men are led by lust, it breeds a massive amount of problems for society and promotes inherent degeneracy into existence. And so this is kind of a bit of an issue. We've seen how sexual appeal has given power, fame, notoriety to many women, even recently. And I guess that'll transition me to my next story, which is the N-word girl. I don't know if you guys have heard about the N-word girl, but a couple months ago, this girl called Lily went viral. A couple months ago, this girl called Lily went viral for saying the N-word on TikTok twice. I'm sure you saw this, but if you didn't, she's basically some trad wife post on TikTok who's a total pick-me. She posts trad content, even though she's in no way like feminine or possesses a wifey energy. In fact, she's a single mother. Lily, or the N-word girl, then went more viral when she faked an apology and doubled down on saying the word. She ended up going on InfoWars and was posted all around uh, conservative social media for not apologizing. Um, which I guess is so based. Women says the N word. So based and red pilled, which is despite the fact women shouldn't say the N word. Like, it's not a very traditional female behavior. You think of the idea of a female, it's like it's supposed to be a mother who is there, you fall, she takes care of the child, she helps him, she cleans up his boo-boos and she takes care of him and tries to help him from getting hurt in the future. She's very protective and soft. Um, and women should be like it's like being a hardcore or abrasive. It's not a very feminine behavior. Women should instead be classy and teach temperance. It's instead the masculine role to be abrasive because if you're going to provide for the family in a society or a world that's harsh, the working conditions are harsh, working all the time isn't really fun. You have to be fine with just dealing with the grit of life. And so men should be abrasive, but women should be kind of soft. There's actually a good women should be because it's how they nurture and take care of the children's health. There's actually a good verse on this, Titus 2:3-5, which says, likewise teach the older women to be reverent in the way they live, not to be slanderers or addicted to much wine, but to teach what is good. Then they can urge the younger women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled and pure, to be busy at home, to be kind, and to be subject to their husbands, so that no one will malign the word of God. So as the Bible says, women should be reverent and they should teach self-control. But this girl has none of it. She gets invited by someone in AF, America First Movement, in case you don't know, to head to AFPAC, which is their annual conference in Detroit, and she came and apparently did shrooms. And I mean, it's just like total immodesty, no discipline. In no way is this traditional core or anything that should be strived to or anything we should be promoting as a conservative movement. Conservative movement espouses that the way things are traditionally is the way things ought to be. So the traditional lifestyle of a mother at home and a father working is the thing you're conserving. But there's nothing conservative about what's been happening, which is they've been promoting this woman as something awesome. What is cool about this? What is feminine about this? In fact, she's so immodest. I have a clip of her right here. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Let me pull up my OBS. In case you want to know, and I'm sorry she's going to use some very vulgar language, so cover your ears if you don't want to hear it. But she's so immodest, she says this. This is what she says.
Hey, America. Hey, people not having kids. You are some stupid motherfuckers out there. The birth rate is declining, and what are you doing? You're getting married. Like, why even bother fucking getting married, you loser? You're getting married. You have some fucking dog in a stroller like a faggot. And then what are you doing? How are you helping America? We're letting the birth rates decline, and I'm speaking particularly to white people. So today, I want you to take the time out of your day to thank a single mom, because us girls getting knocked up, we're the only ones helping with the declining birth rate. You're welcome, America. You're fucking welcome. God.
Sorry, that's really funny to me. Thank you, single mother. What? What? Like, obviously, birth rates are an issue, especially for white people, but that's the promotion of conservative content that we're promoting and reposting. Dinesh D'Souza, I think, reposted this or something like that. This is what we're promoting. This is the conservative America we want. These are our conservative values: getting knocked up and having kids out of wedlock, having an absent father from the home. Like, this is even something that Charlie Kirk talks about. Even the most basic conservatives talk about this. Single fatherhood is one of the worst things that have happened in the black community or in America. Even they talk about this. What are we talking about? What do you mean people should just get knocked up out of marriage and have kids? What do you mean we should thank single mothers? It's not all of them, it's their fault. Some of them just get divorced or for bad reasons. And of course we should be forgiving to these people. But like, what do you mean we should thank them? Like, what are you talking about? We should promote having sex outside of marriage? What are you talking about? This is so ridiculous. And It's so crazy that a woman can say the most retarded, stupid things and get prominence because she's not and terribly. She's not. She's some person that I heard on the Twitter space say, "Girl, you're woman. You're so hot." That's irrelevant. She's not completely the most ugly looking woman in the world. She's not like really hot either, but she's not the most ugly looking woman in the world. And she says the N word and gets knocked up. Oh wow, guys, we got to go promote this woman. Like, what are we doing? What is happening, dude? Like, I open up Instagram and this is what I see is Brandon Tatum reposting reels from this woman. What is happening? What are we doing, dude? Like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? And it gets worse. It gets worse. It gets worse. It gets worse. Um, Real quick, I mean, like this clip that I just showed, I want to talk about that real quick. It exposes the sexual content or control that women have over men. I spoke about in women's world, which is why I did these stories after, because they kind of tie into each other. I mean, she just says something, and then men just start reposting her, and she goes viral. Like some of these clips have 33 million views on Twitter and millions of views on TikTok and on Instagram. Probably at least like 50 million views total combined, and that's maybe undershooting it. Like, she just says something that's kind of like based in red pill, even though it's not at all based in red pill. And because she's a woman and does it, and because of sexual appeal of women or whatever, she goes viral. This is what we're talking. This is what we're promoting. Not femininity, but masculinity in women. And immodesty. And it gets worse. It gets worse. It gets worse. I have another clip, and this is the clip I first saw of her, and this has to be the worst one of all of them. I think maybe the single mother one is worse, but
So
this one's so bad. Because I even saw people that are like cool reposting this video. Let me switch windows real quick, so you can see this. Um, Let me switch scenes. Actually, can I move my? I don't know why my video capture is still not working, but this is the video. Um, this one's so bad. Let me play this one real quick for you guys.
So all those nerds in high school, like the weird theater kids and the anime people, and ugh, you know who I'm talking about, the people we didn't hang out with. So they've grown up now, and they're the ones making the laws. They're the Mark Zuckerbergs. They're the Faucis of the world, of fucking nerds. Those fucking dorks that never got laid in high school, and they've got a major chip on their shoulder against the normies. That's why you see all these fat ass fucks making laws. Oh, you can be obese and anorexic. Okay, sure. They're the ones inventing clown world. They're the ones in media. They're the actors. You wonder why actors are so politically leftist? Oh, right. It's because they're loser theater kids. They're the theater kids who grew up, and now they're telling me and you what to think. They're telling me and you what to do, and they're making the laws in this country. Well, it's time to stand the fuck up and stop being scared. Like, why are we scared of these people? They were massive losers in high school, and they're massive losers today. It's time to put the motherfucking nerds back in their place, stand the fuck up, and speak.
Okay, thank you for that. The most interesting part of that video is where she's like, all these people that didn't get laid, like getting laid, I guess, is like the way of achieving some form of like status to her, because that's what leads her is sexual drive, and that's what leads her followers too. But I saw Brandon Tatum reposting this, and that's when I first saw the video of her. And to be fair, she makes a really keen observation, which is that weird, ugly people do sort of weird, ugly people and rejects run our world, right? This is obviously true. And this is something I've actually wanted to talk about for a while, which is that sounds bad on the surface, but it's actually kind of the way things have always been. This isn't a new phenomenon. The people that are weird and rejects have always been the people that have shaped the futures. I mean, these are your Einsteins. Think about Einstein. I mean, the crazy scientist look. What about Isaac Newton? Isaac Newton was like an incel. Same with Nikola Tesla. Think about Socrates, a total loner. Plato. Think about Picasso's, your Da Vinci's, your Van Goghs, your Shakespeare's, your Edgar Allan Poe's. And as she points out, think about your new people. Think about your Bill Gates. Think about your Zuckerbergs. Think about your Elon Musk. Think about your Bezoses. And like in the music world, think about like your Yays. And even in like militaristically, think about like your Adolfs, we'll say. Um, these are the people that changed the world. Some for the worse, some for the better. A lot for the worse. But these are the people that changed the world. And there are some exceptions though. Think about like Aristotle, George Washington. There are some people that are extroverted that good-looking people that change the world or whatever, but it usually is these rejects, which raises a question: why? Why are these rejects the people that change the world? The people that never fit in, why do they change the world? Well, I'll ask you this. Why would you want to change the way things are if you fit in with the way things are? Why would you want to imagine a new future if the current one benefits you? Why would you want to change things for the better if it makes things worse for you? And so the people who recognize the issues with society imagine a future and create that future. And they imagine, they create, and they shape it. These people now tend to become liberals. Why? Well, it's because we don't appeal to them at all. We don't try to appeal to them. Instead, we try to appeal to these normie types. How do you appeal to these people? It's through radicalization. They don't want to hear that things are fine the way that things are. They don't want to hear that we should just conserve something that's a failure. And so conservatives never won the culture because the people that make the culture never want to be conservative. And this is because the conservatives appeal to these barstool white guys who like drinking and premarital sex. And for whatever reason, this is a large part of the conservative Republican base. Partially because the Republican base is a lot less radical, and partially because the Republican platform has adopted a live and let live position, which is what most average people and conformists want. They don't want to change anything, they just want to live in the world as it is. But we can't have that, though. Things stink as they are. You can't raise a child normally anymore. You can't buy a home at a reasonable price anymore. It's hard to find a wife who isn't totally washed up. On the other side, it's hard to find a husband who can afford to provide for you. It's hard to afford children. Schools have become a necessity, but are full of degeneracy and just utter crap. But the Republican base wants things to stay the same. And, you see Brandon Tatum and people repost this woman talking about this video where it's about how people should need to get laid and about how we should have normies run the country. And it's just terrible. It's a horrible observation. Like, you see these frat guys come out, and this is the frat base for you, by the way. You see them come out and protest, pro-Palestine protest. And outside the Jewish ones, they have no interest in the Israel conflict and probably have no opinions on the topic. They don't even know why they're out there. But they see all these radicals and rejects upset about something, and so they counter-protest. They don't know why, but they see people who want change, and they want stagnation. But we can't have stagnation. We must build a better future. But this lady says we should just get laid instead and just live in the world. But this is the message of Satan. Just live. Have fun. This is a liberal position too. Just do whatever, go to Pride, have fun. Do whatever, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone. And this is a position that the right has adopted in order to appeal to this normie base and appeal to independence or whatever. But it isn't Christian, it isn't Catholic, and it's not effective. Maybe it's effective for winning short-term elections, but we're pushing off these people who actually care about changing things because one party is like, oh, well, America is terrible from the beginning and we need to create a new tomorrow, and they create paintings and they create music and they create movies, they star in movies, they create TV shows, they create cartoons, they create architecture, they try all these things, and conservatives want to complain about we're losing the culture war, but instead of, promoting these ideas, radicalism, bringing about change, promoting change, moving on from the past, looking towards the future, instead of focusing on these things, it's, oh, well, things are just fine the way as they are, and we got to keep them the way they are. Screw that. We actually don't have to do that, and things suck as the way they are. And this is how you lose the culture, if you talk like that. And so we really do need to, we obviously do need these people who are charismatic and good looking. We need our George Washingtons. We need people that go about and change ideas of people and lead movements and be leaders. But we shouldn't push away these fringe freaks. Instead, we should have people learn these things, like business ownership, like software, or whatever the future might be, like theater, and occupy these positions and replace these, degenerate people with people that want to create something that's for the honor of God. And we appeal to these people through radicalism and claims for creation, not pretend that things are fine the way they are and allowing for the decline of the nation through adopting left-wing radicalism to continue to try and operate within the middle to appeal to this independent frat type people, these normies. And instead of doing, we need to not do that and instead appeal to these radicals if we actually want to change the cultures. We're so kept up with conserving things the way they exist that we fail to realize that we have allowed for a complete decline within the nation. Nothing was the same it was 50 years ago. Even though we tried to say things the way they are, we just allowed more these small little changes that orchestrated this terrible, disgusting nation we have now. And instead of blaming ourselves, we're blaming these theater kids, these people that just want to create things, when we could have done the same and we decided not to. When we could have done the same and we decided to push those people away. When we've had radicals that have tried to speak out and they get deplatformed conservative institutions. When we've had people that are like, oh, well, maybe the way we're talking about something like the Israel conflict, maybe that's not how we should talk about it. And then they get kicked off the media company they work for, they get booted, and then they just get deplatformed from everything. Or the same thing with Ye. We run so many segments talking about how terrible he is because he wants to imagine things differently. And if we want to change society, we can't be scared of change. We can't be pro stagnation. And as long as we are, well, we can have these normies run the country, but the normies are just going to move more to the radicals because as long as the Overton window is pushing, as long as we are the normies and they're pushing left, we're going to move to the left because, if we appeal to a more middle ground and they move farther that way, then the middle ground now is going to be here. If we continue to push to the middle ground, it's going to keep moving that way. Where I'm moving to my right, let's keep moving to the left. And so if we don't want that, we can appeal to normies. It's good for short-term success. It's good for winning elections. But we can't be scared of changing the future. If we want to forget about the future, well, the future's going to forget about us. And this moves me into another similar story. It's so crazy how this just keeps happening. The same story over and over and again with just different people just keeps happening. Um, uh, I see a chat. I'll get to that later. But this is something I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Hawk Tua girl. I'm sure you guys have seen the memes or whatever. But some drunk woman took part, basically. If you haven't seen it, some drunk woman took part in a street interview where she was asked a sex move that makes a man go crazy, and she responded with a reference to a move in fellatio, we'll call it, and she referred to it with the automatopoeia or the sound of Hawk Tua, and she made it look like she was spitting when she did it. And it went crazy viral. It went so viral. For some reason, this lady got a documentary. There were T-shirts sold about her. She got paid $30K to appear at a club, according to TMZ. And Zach Bryan, one of the biggest artists in the world, brought her out to sing at a concert. She managed to somehow get signed to a management firm called The Penthouse, that's owned by Johnny Foster, which is some like Jew from New York or whatever. And so people have it's so crazy how she's blown up, and people have been attributing this in some of these more fringe online circles, some of these more radical circles, as we talked about earlier, that have been pushed out of the mainstream. They've been attributed this to like Jewish malpractice or whatever. And I believe there was some more involvement from some Jewish individuals, but even if there is, it's like, and certainly they do have a big representation in sexual matters. We'll get into that later. But even if that is, that misses an important point. Even if they are involved in the selling of this product, there are buyers of this product, and that's an issue. Okay, maybe they're selling it, but there's people buying it. And you want to know who these buyers are? You'll never guess who it is. You'll never guess who the buyers of this content are. Barstool frat type white guys. Wow, what a surprise. The same people again. The same people over and over again. And you see all these conservative people talking about the Hawk Tua girl or whatever. And it's become a political topic somehow. She's asked if she would perform sex moves on Donald Trump because she's just assumed to be a Republican figure because she's a countrywoman who is sexually immodest. That's our base now. And our supporters for our base are frat type barstool white guys, and so this is our figure. This is who we're her championing. Um, it's so bad. It's so bad. Um, this basis existence, the frat based existence, has just spitted in the face of Christianity, and has all they've brought is Israel shilling and giving power to women through the power of sexual desire. They People want to complain about feminism, but the only thing empowering feminism are these type of men that just are there to get drunk and get laid. And no one wants to complain about that. Instead, it's about, well, we just want men and women to be treated equally, and feminists don't believe in that. Dog, shut up. Like, shut up, okay? Sorry, I'm a bit tired, but I'm even more tired of this like frat boy conservatism or whatever that I keep seeing big figures promote and talk about being, I guess, the future of the party. I'm so tired of that. Like, I've heard nobody talk about how this woman has, in that same interview, said she had about like 4 men on the roster and about how this isn't feminine. I've heard no one talk about that. Instead, I've heard people in normal conversations reference this video and what she said. And I've seen people post on their stories about this woman as if it's some form of like political hero because she wants to have sex with men. Wow, this is a conservative platform now, and it makes sense. You look at the RNC, and Amber Rose is up there, and like if you're on the left, you're like, wow, these Republicans, they're all prudes, they're all these Christian extremists, and then you get in the Republican Party or the conservative base, and it's just like it's its own form of pornography. That's basically what the movement is. It's so terrible. And no one wants to talk about it. People will talk about obviously how bad it is because most people, at least in my circles, recognize this as gross. But no one wants to talk about the origins of this, which is, I guess, appealing to, I guess, the masses and neglecting the fringe. And some reason, it's this massive harlot. To go back to the N-word girl, who I forgot to mention, this has like photos of male sperm in her mouth on social media somehow. I wish I hadn't seen them, but unfortunately I have. Didn't even search it up. It got posted on Instagram and Telegram by someone. Thank you for that. Um, but that woman is talking about, well, men should have more sex and we should appeal to more normies, and normies should run the world. And somehow we don't recognize that, oh, maybe that's not a good idea. Some other Christians are like, that makes sense. That makes sense, girl. That makes sense, girl. You're trashing on Mark Zuckerberg. That makes sense, girl. You go, girl. You go, girl. You speak your truth. You speak your truth, girl. Slay, girl. And somehow that's what's said, and not, you're disgusting. You're not feminine. You're trying to act like a man, and we want to complain about feminism, but you are the byproduct of it. You could not exist without feminism. You are the end goal of it. It's these women who are sexual and lead men on and create power for themselves and relevance to themselves by talking about sex and being sexually open. And it's the avenue for sin and all this degeneracy for society that we've seen just, propagate all these disgusting figures. It's how this is so. I mean, I guess there's some of it that is less obvious, but at least in the form of recognizing patterns, it should be so obvious that this is just like this sexual nature of what she's talking about, what the top two girls talk about. There's obviously an issue. There's obviously something wrong here, and I guess no one wants to recognize it. Uh, and it's just so tiring. I'm tired of the next week's version of the conservative whore. I'm tired of the next week's version. Like, it's every week there's a new conservative whore. Can we not? Can we not have a conservative whore? We don't need one, okay? We don't need a conservative whore. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to exist, okay? It's so annoying. It's so bad. Um, I need to get on the next topic. I'm actually like, it honestly pisses me off so much. I need to get on the next topic. Um, Actually, real quick, I will talk about this because someone commented this. Rat said, he wanted me to comment on my experience of meeting Sneeko. Yeah, it was actually interesting. I was at Amfest, or not Amfest, AFPAC. I did go to Amfest too, but I was at AFPAC, and we were trying to go to some party full of like people in my movement or whatever. And we went to this hotel and they weren't there. They were moving to a casino or to a different hotel. We went to that hotel and then they were at a casino. And in the middle of heading to the second hotel, the casino, we walk outside when we waited to meet up with everyone. And because we took two separate trips, I drove and then we had Big Nick and his crew, the people he was going with, they walked. And so we met back up in the lobby and we leave the lobby and Sneeko is just hanging out there. We said hi. It was very brief. That's the story. David Duke was also there. Didn't shake hands or take a photo with David Duke or anything, but he was there, which was weird. Um, it was the only time I saw him, and it was very weird because he's David Duke, which is a very weird experience. I haven't really ever listened to him. I might have heard like one or two things from him on Infowars, I think, if he went on Infowars, but I've never really listened to him, so it was weird to see him there. I wasn't expecting to run into him, but he had like a media crew with him, and I didn't talk with him, which I don't know if I would have anyways, because he's David Duke. So I probably wouldn't have talked to him. But yeah, that was the experience. It was interesting. Sneeko kind of was, he was a weird figure to meet because he was really nice, but he also kind of just like didn't want to engage in conversation. I guess he was busy with something. My friend Carson tried to talk to him, and he just it was like okay. He's like Carson's like it's such a fan. It's like I think that's what happened. I don't remember, but it wasn't like we really talked to him very long or we hung out with him. There was a lot of people there in Detroit, just random people there. Some of them I met, some of them other people met, but yeah, it was a fun trip. It was very interesting. I do want to get into my next story real quick. Before I do, Base Colby asked when I'll be in Ohio. I was in Ohio not too long ago for Detroit, and you saw me there. I saw you there in Detroit. So that was when I was in Ohio. Uh, yeah, probably not happening anytime soon, Colby. It's I'd rather not pay $20 to drive through your state again, especially on those roads, which were terrible. And it was just a lot of nothing for a while, which is cool. Okay, let's get into our next story. I had to respond to some comments, but I want to talk about this real quick. This is like our second to last story. I know it's a bit of a long spiel, but this on the topic of what we were just talking about with the Hawk Tuah girl and how she had some Jewish involvement in her fame or whatever, or now she has some Jewish involvement. And on the topic of Jewish involvement in sexual topics, there was a recent beef between Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson, Jordan Peterson, and Nick Fuentes. Let me pull up the original tweet by Michaela real quick. Let me switch scenes. There we go. This is not the right scene. That is a Discord scene. Where is the right scene? Here we go. I hope there wasn't anything bad in that Discord. That'd be terrible. Okay, so Dr. Anastasia Maria Lupez. She's this big Twitter account. I don't exactly know what she does, but she has a lot of followers, but she tweets about things of this topic a lot, of this kind of topic, and she just tweets out about all these owners of, Tinder, Grindr, Bumble, OnlyFans, you know, uh, these industries that are built off of sexual desire. And Michaela Peterson, who is the daughter of Jordan Peterson, says, I can't believe I'm seeing Nazis in my lifetime that didn't grow up in a cave. She's an MD spewing cherry-picked data while completely ignoring facts like almost 30% of Nobel Peace Prize winners are Jews. Maybe there does need to be some more content moderation at Elon Musk. And so this was a big news story because she asked for content moderation, and her dad is kind of like that's his brand is kind of like anti-moderation, anti-censorship. So it's kind of been a big issue. And she faced like a lot of backlash for that. And then she doubled down on a new deleted tweet. It's now deleted. Sorry, a now deleted tweet. I'll read it here. I have the quote from a screenshot. It says, "Yes, I think the Nazis on X equating Jews with rats and using hashtags like #filth should have more content moderation / censorship. No, I'm not retracting that statement." So she just doubled down. She's like, yeah, these people equating Jews with rats and making, I guess, talking about these Jewish stereotypes. And I'm sure you've heard, we all know the spiel of these were the stereotypes that Germans had before before some evil events were transpired. I'm sure we've all heard that spiel. The argument is that we need moderation against the speech because the speech leads to violence in the same way that yelling fire when there's not a fire could lead to death. That's I guess the logistical reasoning. But it got interesting when Nick got involved because Michaela Peterson's dad, Jordan Peterson, called Nick a rat, and Nick pointed out this contradiction. It's like, well, why can he call me a rat, but people can't call certain groups rats? And Michaela clarified that it was different for Jews because of, again, these historical events. Um, and this clearly took a big toll on her dad, Jordan Peterson, who I imagine, was probably receiving calls and text messages about what her daughter was posting. And at some point, although I can't find the post, he told her that censorship was a dangerous path or something to that effect. But this gets into the importance of the story, which is that Jordan Peterson responded to Nick's point of hypocrisy, or the point he was trying to make with this. Wait, let me pull it up. This is where it became a big deal. This is where it became a big issue. This is what he says. He says, "I apologize for calling you a rat, Nick. Rats are just animals. They happen to be an enemy of mankind, so they are like you in that regard. But they are merely acting on instinct, whereas you are motivated by a willful ignorance so deep that it's kind of a miracle, in combination with a profound malevolence. So I was unfair to the rats. Oh, burn. Hence my apology. Take note." And then he added his daughter. And then he goes on here. He says, "I don't regret the psychopath moniker, however." And he tweets something I'm not going to show for YouTube content guidelines and says, "Finally, I hope with all my heart that you reap the full benefit of the stunningly vile company you keep, attract, cultivate, and deserve." And I actually don't care for talking about the back and forth so much. I actually want to talk about. Actually, I'm going to pull it back up. What the heck did I just do? I want to pull back up the tweet actually, because there's something really interesting here, and it wasn't the subject matter as much, although that's important. It's not something I really want to get involved with or care to get involved with because I think it's already obvious. But it's sort of like there's this Jordan Peterson tries to elaborate that Nick is full of willful ignorance and where is he? He says malevolence somewhere. Yeah, profound malevolence. He's attributing Nick to be this evil villain, but this reads, she's saying Nick is this hateful guy, but Jordan Peterson kind of sounds very hateful in this message. He's like, rats are just animals, which makes you like the rat. You're just an animal, and you're like a psychopath. And so it was very weird because this guy, his career is like, it's about, um, the rules for life or whatever, and making yourself a better person, a more collected person. But the message that he sent is like super unhinged and sort of contradicts this whole messaging. And so the difference in this extremity to a guy, and this is where it really becomes weird because Jordan Peterson has talked with people like Destiny, who has previously talked about, before his interview, had talked about why we should shoot conservatives or whatever, which is obviously terrible. Or he's talked with people like Dave Rubin, who trafficked a child. He talks with people who support abortion, homosexuality, who hate God, who hate white people. But when it comes to what Nick is talking about, that subject matter, there's this profound malevolence. There's this profound hatred for Nick, which is really interesting because it makes it sound like his values they're not actually, these liberal values about free speech and small government. It's not these values as much as it is some loyalty to something that has no relevance to him, which is really weird. Um, And it's really weird. Just all of his principles, they just go out the way when it comes to a certain group of people, which is really interesting because his whole career was about, his whole career, and this is why it became a big issue because Michaela, was making a poor representation for her father because she's talking about censorship, but Jordan Peterson's like big political part of his career, not the part about like helping men or his philosophy, but his political part of his career was about free speech. Canada had some like speech restriction or something, and he made some big statement that he wasn't going to follow them. And then he has like a lawsuit about it or whatever. And so he always positioned himself as this big pro liberty, pro free speech guy. He told the BBC that I've studied authoritarianism. Sorry, I'm getting a bit tired. He says, I studied authoritarianism for a very long time, for 40 years, and they're started by people's attempts to control the ideological and linguistic territory. So people's attempts to control speech start authoritarianism. But again, when it comes to a certain group, this sort of is abandoned, at least with Michaela. And then it got abandoned with Jordan, which was a total left field thing. Let me pull this up. It was totally out of left field. Let me pull up this scene right here, this tweet. This is where, I mean, it really tipped over the iceberg of, I guess, how crazy this all got. He says, Dear Elon Musk, there was a lot of this on X. Wait, let me pull up the tweet. Can I pull it up? Why can't I pull it up? Okay, here it is. Let me pull it up. You are all rats. It's a photo of him. He kind of looks like a rat. That's, I guess, the photo. And then here's him, I guess, an AI generated photo of him as a rat. And here is what Jordan Peterson says. Dear Elon Musk, there's a lot of this on X and more all the time. There is no consequence for psychopathic behavior on the platform, and casual anonymity has led to a lot with it. Separate the real people with the verified and genuine IDs from the pathetic, cowardly, anonymous troll demons. They are not lol comedians having fun with lol's culture. They are worse than anyone wants to imagine, and purposely so. Failure to hold them accountable not only compromises a platform, but the integrity of society itself. So these people need to be like banished from society, I guess. As the dark tetrad types multiply without restraint and exert disproportionate influence. And then, and consider this, sir, I don't give a dang about the personal attacks. I face worse than this latest cockroach swarm. But I'm serious about the broader social danger posed by the children of Cain. They've gained the upper hand before, and it's not pretty, at Elon Musk. And someone says, you're calling on Elon to censor people, and he says, clue one, I said in writing, separate the anonymous cowards from the people willing to stand before their words. The former presents a cardinal danger to the integrity of society itself. And which camp are you in? I didn't even see this person like tweets it out like he does. I'm in the freedom of speech. That's so funny. But yeah, this is crazy. Like, first of all, the amount of anger is insane. Like, again, this guy is clearly so unhealthy, which is sad. I pray for Jordan Peterson, but his whole brand was about being healthy and being, psychologically, mentally, physically well, and clearly it's not working well for him. And he comes out and says that we need to make IDs for people so they can't talk against, I guess they can't, allude to Jewish stereotypes or whatever, or make comparisons to, or make points to the how the topic is talked about, I guess. We can't talk about that unless you have an ID, which basically means you need to be of threat of getting doxxed to talk about things like this, which is insane. It's absolutely insane. I can't believe. I mean, this is so insane that it's happening. That's such an insane thing to say, and it is such a profound. I'm showing Discord again. Well, that's terrible. Sorry about that, Christian, for your server, for doxing your server. I guess. Sorry about that. Um, but he wants to talk about profound malevolence, but there's such a profound um hatred, I guess, in relevance to this topic and for it seems that everything that he believes in and espouses goes out the window when it comes to this. The same thing happened with Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin, by the way, if you don't know, Dave Rubin is a liberal who grew prominence in the conservative movement for being a free speech and classical liberalism advocate. He famously wrote a book called "Don't Burn This Book: Think for Yourself in the Age of Unreason," which is a book about the war on free thinkers. But I'm gonna have to change capture mode real quick again. Actually, let me pull up the tweet first and then do it. Here we go. And here's where it gets crazy. I mean, let me pull it up. Where is it? There we go. Is it gonna load up? Okay, here it is. So someone tweets out, France has just banned pro-Palestine protests, and Dave Rubin, free speech advocate himself, says maybe the West has a chance. And then John Miller tweets this out. It's a really good reply, and he blocked John Miller after this. And this person says, no, let them protest, let everyone see them, expose them, let the good ideas win, let the bad ideas lose. And he says they're calling for that word explicitly, what's left to expose. So-called free thinkers, free speech advocates when it comes to Israel. Oh, gotta ban them. Oh, ban the protests. Oh, let's censor them on X, or let's make them acquire their ID so we can dox them. Oh, nope, don't talk about it. No, no, no. You talk about it, Candace Owens, you lose. You lose. You lose your spot Daily Wire. Don't talk about it. No, no, no. TPUSA comes out and a representative for it's like, if you talk about Israel, no, no, no. You can't be a sponsor. You can't work with TPUSA and talk bad about Israel. Dog, this is America. This is America. This is the United States of America. You're TPUSA, not TP Israel. You're Daily Wire. You're an American media company. You're Dave Rubin. You're an American conservative figure, even though you claim to be, you call yourself a liberal and you're very clearly liberal. You're Dave Rubin. You're Jordan Peterson. You're a Canadian who joined the American political sphere. What's up with all this with this Israel stuff? What's happening? What's going on? It's crazy. I haven't been here to talk about it. And I don't feel like I'm very great on foreign conflicts, so I haven't talked about it. But let's take their position here real quick, and let's say that Israel should have the full support of the U.S. in their conflict, which is their position. At what point does that go to we need to censor and stop speech against it while also espousing to be a free speech absolutist? Like, there's such a big inherent contradiction and such hatred and malevolence from these people towards people that speak against them or have a different position for something that's not even like shouldn't even bother them. Like, so let's take out that frame of thinking that I just put myself in. As a listener, I care about American issues, right? I care about abortion, the border, our economy, crime rates, manufacturing, trade, wages. I care about cultural things. I care about God, Christianity. My God isn't this other country. And it's very crazy that the American political movement is just full of people like this, like Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson, or full of people like Ben Shapiro, who basically advocate that it's fine for Israel to nuke the whole world and call you like evil and terrible if you speak against American involvement in the foreign conflicts. Like, what's going on? It's really crazy what's happening. I haven't been here to talk about the conflict. There's been other people doing it better, but it is insane. And someone needs to talk about the fact that these so-called figures clearly have some form of ulterior motives in what they're espousing, which is just insane. Even if you support Israel or if you don't support Israel, uh, these people don't care about their principles. These people don't actually mean what they say. They say they're free speech absolutists, but they're not. They say we need to stop tech censorship, but they actually don't believe in that. They say, well, the great thing about America is you can say whatever you want, but they actually don't believe in that. That's the issue. that's awful. These people are fake. They're not in it to bring about something great for the world. They're clearly in it for some other reason. And so, regardless of what you think, that's a problem. Like I was talking with one of my IRL friends, and shout outs to them. They've been very great. I love them. And I sent a message thread, and I was talking about Jordan Peterson, and I was asked something like, "Well, do you support Palestine? Do you not support Israel?" And it's like, even if I do support Israel, that's not like the point I'm trying. That's not the point I'm saying with all this. Even if I mean, that's another topic which should be talked about and has been talked about by a lot of people. Um, and maybe I'll dive into it at some point, but now is not the time. But regardless of the side, I mean, this is a big issue that the people that talk about things in our movement don't actually believe what they talk about, and they're not in it for what they believe, what they say they believe in. They're in it for whatever it might be. I don't know what it. I mean, I do know what it could possibly be, but I'm not gonna talk about it right now. But I think we all know. We all know. I might whisper it to you a bit. I think we all know what it is. But I guess we'll move on to our next story. I do want to wrap this up. We started with Trump. I do want to talk about Trump real quick one last time, and then I guess we'll close out the stream. Um, Outside the technical issues at the beginning of the stream's been going pretty decently, I guess. Um, but our last story is about Project 2025, which, sure, many of you have heard. Trump recently disavowed Project 2025. Let me pull up his original True Social message. Let me pull that up real quick. So Donald Trump on Truth posted, "I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who is behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything that they do, I wish them luck, but they have nothing to do with, or I have nothing to do with them." And Project 2025, in case you don't know, it is in some ways a policy proposal, but the main core of it is the goal is to bring people who are loyal to Trump and loyal to an America First message into the White House, and bring a young core into the White House to stop Trump from being compromised. Sorry, maybe like he was in prior administrations, and Trump just said that's not going to happen. I guess. Hopefully, it just happens anyways, and maybe he changes his mind. Um, but yeah, that's kind of a worry because the Trump policy proposals really aren't that amazing anymore. But the great thing was hopefully we'd get people that are cool into the White House, and it looks like that's not going to happen anymore. So I guess that was the last story. It was very very hard to see because you know when it happened, because the reason he does about it is because Trump always likes to be liked, and there was a lot of people freaking out about Project 2025 because it makes it sound like Trump's going to be the next dictator or whatever, and so people were freaking out. Um, and I see him disavow it, and I see all these people on my Instagram feed who never talk about politics, who never post about Trump or anything. They all start posting about, "Hey guys, Trump disavowed Project 2025." It's all these people. It's all these conformists. It's the frat types. Maybe some of them are kind of like nerdish. They're not really frat types, but it is the people that want to fit in. Again, the same group of people. Again, that I complained about earlier. It's the same people. It's so annoying. Please be quiet. Be quiet. Please, please be quiet. I mean, like we need these people, but we're gonna have to focus on moving our message to a direction and then having them conform our way. We can't like champion these people as like the future because it's not really the direction of taking our country back to where we want it to be. It's not through conforming with the way that things are. As I elaborated earlier, but it's so annoying. Every week, it's the same group of people, and no one talks about it. No one says anything about it. In fact, I see people that are like in these distant positions in distant political groups. They're like, "Frat boy conservatism is the future." It's like, dog, shut up. No, it's not. Frat boy conservatism is gay. It's cringe. It's satanic. It's evil. It's lame. Please shut up. Okay. What about what about Carter Shaw conservatism? Okay, what about that? Okay, maybe that's the future. Um, Yeah, it's so annoying. I haven't been live in a while, and all these like frustrations I've really been boiling over, and I'm really like restricting what I want to say about it. Not because like I don't want to talk about these topics, but I don't want to just to make myself sound insane. But like it is kind of like getting on my nerves like a lot. So we're moderating how our frustration a bit, but it's really been it's been grinding my gears. I'm gonna see more of it as the election cycle continues. But I guess this will end the stream. Sorry, I'm a bit tired, so I don't really know if I can go on any longer. But thank you to everyone that tuned in to the show. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe and consider checking out some of my other content as well as my music review channel. And follow my Instagram that's linked in my bio because that's where you'll find all my updates. That's when I tell people I'm streaming. That's when I tell people when I upload on my other account. That's really like that's where all my news and updates happen. So make sure you follow that account. Again, thank you for tuning in. Have a good night. God bless.